Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to You in Kindness. I'm Les Winston, your host, and we are part of the Endow American Network Foundation's reach to the public to explain how charitable giving can benefit the individual as well as organizations, and that it is a way to share love and to love yourself and to share love with others. And from time to time, we get an opportunity to talk to others who have spent a great deal of time in this field. My guest today is Glenn Kaufhold. Glenn is a 30-year veteran in the fundraising arena, understands the ins and outs of how charitable organizations need to operate. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Les. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, glad to have you. And so your experience in the fundraising world, what is the number one problem that nonprofit organizations face with regard to their continuing activity?
Oh, that's a big question. I think one of the biggest problems that nonprofits face is donor retention. When you look at national research, donor retention rates in this country are at about 44%. And if you look at first-time donors to an organization, that number plummets down to 21%. And so it's a huge problem, and it's tied to what nonprofits are doing in the area of donor relations and stewardship, how they are managing those gifts and how they are engaging their donors.
Okay, so what does donor retention actually mean?
So donor retention is the people who stick with you year after year. So let's just say your average nonprofit, you had 100 donors last year. If you follow the national statistics, almost 60 of those people are not going to give to you again this year. So that's donor retention.
Okay. So when the fundraising arm of the organization is reaching out to their donors,
Mhm.
is the need for current cash, current support dominant, or do they look to build long-term support?
I think it depends on the organization and its size and where it's at in its evolution. For most small to medium sized nonprofits, operating cash, is critical, keeping the doors open. I think when organizations, are larger, more established, then they've been successful with fundraising, then they have that bandwidth to have those conversations with their donors, with their investors about building endowment, and more sophisticated giving vehicles beyond just cash.
Okay. So this is a time of year when there's a lot of focus on giving, and I know we have an event coming up as far on Giving Day, Tuesday, Giving Tuesday.
Yes.
But you're involved with an organization locally, and you've been involved in philanthropy month, week, day.
Well, today is actually Give Miami Day,
Good.
which is organized by the Miami Foundation. I do not work for the Miami Foundation, but I did have a chance to participate in some of their capacity building work with nonprofits. But today's a big day in Miami. Since 2012, the Miami Foundation has raised over $100 million in contributions. And, at this point, about 1,000 nonprofits are participating in Give Miami Day right now as we speak.
How are they? Are they supported by the local media at all?
Yeah, Miami Foundation does a great job of getting attention from media and other partners, but it is really the individual nonprofits that are driving traffic to the Give Miami Day website. If anyone who's involved in nonprofits here in Miami, even as a donor, you've been getting messages for the last couple of weeks from nonprofits, and especially today.
Yes.
Reminding you to give, reminding you why you should give, and to do it, today. Last year, I think it was the Miami Foundation that kind of expanded it. So we have early giving days starting on Monday now, leading up to the Thursday Give Miami Day.
So what do they? What is there a target? Do you have an idea what they're gonna what they're gonna what they're gonna raise in this day and age in this climate? I'm just wondering, you know.
Well, every nonprofit sets a goal for themselves. So when you sign up for Give Miami Day, you put into your system how much you're trying to raise. And yes, we're in an uncertain climate with what may or may not happen economically, but time after time after time, Americans prove that they are philanthropic, that they are generous. We see that especially after events like 9/11, and especially during the pandemic and the lockdown.
Right.
Organizations that I've been working with, they had some of their best fundraising years in 2020 and in 2021 because people do rally.
So GKollaborative was started by you in 2010.
Correct.
And what do you do in GKollaborative?
So we are partners. We're advisors to nonprofit organizations. We tend to work with small to mid-size organizations. There are three of us in the company, and we work in any number of areas from board development, governance, strategic planning, fundraising, operations, financial management. We're almost a full service company, working with our partners on any number of issues. And often we're brought in on one issue and we realize there are others, and so it the work expands.
And you're dealing with volunteers for the most part?
We're dealing with volunteer board members, but we're also dealing with staff of nonprofits. Some of our clients don't have much, any staff. We're very few staff, so it's more board driven. But every client is different.
Yeah, volunteer boards are sometimes like herding cats. Do you have can you relate an experience where you were able to herd the cats and have a successful charitable have success in the charitable progress? Let's put it that way.
It's a great question. I don't think I can think of any one particular organization where it was a problem. What we often have to do is educate board members. Like I have a client right now that's in financial distress. I'm not going to name names. They're not here in the Miami community. And what we're finding there is a lot of the board doesn't understand what's going on. So we have to bring them together. One of my first clients said to me once that one of the things that she thought I do well is bring people together around an idea. So it could be a problem that has to be fixed or a direction the organization wants to go with. But that's the art of our work, is really bringing everyone together.
That's the collaborative aspect of what you're talking about. That's why you use that word, collaborative.
That word, and also it's really tied to our business model. So we're not a big company. We bring together the best and brightest people when we need them to work on a particular solution for a client.
So they can get fairly involved, the solutions, I assume, because clients. Do you find that it's more becoming more likely than not that nonprofits have to help their donors? It's not just about their donors helping them.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that is the art of good philanthropy is becoming partners with your donors. In some of those relationships, donors look to us for advice. We have to be careful. We're not financial advisors. Those of us who are development professionals, but we have to be partners with them. I remember one experience about a year ago. A client of mine, their donor relations person, called a donor to thank them. This is an organization in the cultural space, and the donors happened to mention that they were very interested in the work of another cultural organization in another part of the country. And it turned out the person from the organization knew people there and connected them together. So, you know, when we have these, you know, hopefully long-term relationships, you know, we end up getting to know our donors very well. And I think at you know, the core of this, it's not what can you do for us, but it's how can we help you do what's important to you, whether it's to solve a problem, work on an issue, make you feel good about your giving. That's the art of this.
That's very, very, very good. I like that. I like that phrasing because it does speak to the real love in this whole activity. Everything that we're doing is based on love, you know. So the power of love, and what we call endowment squared. You know, we would like people to create endowments for themselves so they can live very well. But when they pass, let them pass that endowment on. The part that they're not going to leave to their kids and their family and everybody else, let them pass that on to the community. It's much better way for them to solve problems. My guest is Glenn Kaufhold. Glenn, I appreciate your obviously your work in the community with regard to fundraising and learning and teaching or collaborating with the nonprofit organizations to make them better. And we would love to be able to work with you as well. The Endow American Network Foundation is not in its infancy. It's been around quite a while. It's actually been around since 2004, and we're engaged in something that's pretty big. We want to endow America. So, and that
it's a great goal. It's a great goal.
Yeah, and that has to do with endowing your organizations, the ones you work with as well. They need endowment. Endowment will help them solve a lot of problems. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm sure that's very much part of what you talk about all the time with them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what makes you when you get up in the morning? What are you looking forward to? What's the highlight of your day?
You know, this will I don't know, that this might sound simplistic, but you know, at the end of the day, I want to go to bed knowing I helped move the needle for a client, for a project, you know, for something. You know, I think those of us who go into the nonprofit sector don't do it to become rich. We do it to, you know, to fulfill something, you know, in ourselves. And you know, I'll share. I started my career in nonprofit and ended up moving from my native New Jersey to Boston and took a job in the for-profit sector. And I was there for a year before the company was sold and moved to California. And I learned an awful lot from my coworkers, things that I still use to this day. But when they announced the sale of the company and I had to go back into the job market, I made a decision to go back into nonprofit work because it's rewarding. You know, I think most of us as human beings need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. You know, there are exceptions, but most of us have to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And, you know, for those in the nonprofit sector, that's how we fulfill that need. For other people, it's volunteering. For other people, it's giving money. And it doesn't matter how much money you give. You know, you give $25 to an organization on Give Miami Day, that makes you feel good. And you know, you used the word love before, and when you think about the word philanthropy, it's not about fundraising, it's not about giving, it's about the love of humankind. That's the definition of philanthropy.
Yes, sir.
And people, you know, think, oh, I don't have $1 million, I'm not a philanthropist. You give $10, you're a philanthropist. It's what's in your heart that drives you to do that. And so, you know, your long answer to your question, it's what's in my heart. It's what's in anyone's heart who's doing this work.
Well, thank you very much, Glenn, for joining me today on Route 664, the Road to Kindness. And hopefully we'll see you in person soon, somewhere at one event or Zoom or whatever. But Glenn Kaufhold, the founder of GKollaborative, for those you out there who are working in the nonprofit area, who are involved with nonprofit organizations, and you're having some questions about how to proceed and you need some guidance, GKollaborative would be a way to find that guidance. So get in touch with Glenn Kaufhold. You have a website, I'm sure.
GKollaborative.com.
Okay, that's GKollaborative, collaborative spelt with a G.
Correct.
GKollaborative. Thanks again, Glenn, for joining us, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Les. Take care.
You bet. Thank you. And our focus, of course, in doing what we're doing, this road to human kindness, is to help people get along that road and do things for the community as well as for themselves. Our formula, which is 664 equals E squared, is a big formula. It's the formula of love. It's section of the tax code 664 equals E squared, which is endowment squared. An endowment for yourself that you create effectively, really in a very effective way using tax avoidance that's given to us by the code. And then when you've created that large endowment for yourself and you've living off that endowment for your lifetime, when you pass, you would pass that on to the community. That's a part of what you own. It's not everything that you own. Depends on what your family situation is. It depends on what your personal situation is. Your individual financial fingerprint is what's the basis of everything that on a philanthropic level can be planned. And so people who plan their philanthropy are generally much more successful with their finances overall. We're going to be having a very important Zoom meeting that you can attend if you'll go to the website. We're working with the Aventura Sunny Isles Beach Chamber of Commerce. The Aventura Sunny Isles Beach Chamber of Commerce website is asibchamber.org. If you go to asibchamber.org, you'll find a place where you can sign up for the meeting, and it's on the 29th of November, Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if you sign up there, we'll send you the link to get on that meeting. That meeting is going to be about using pooled income funds, charitable trusts, and charitable gift annuities to create endowments. Using pooled income funds, charitable trusts, and charitable gift annuities to create endowments. And those endowments that we're talking about creating are creating an endowment for yourself, effectively with tax provision, tax protection, and then passing that on to the community. You can, when I ask the question, why do people give to charity? And a lot of people say they give for the tax deduction. And I understand that they give for the tax deduction. They also give to feel good. And they like the idea that they're helping something. But you can add income to that, income from the gift coming back to you as a donor into that equation by using 664, by using what we're talking about, the theory of social security, which is 664 equals E squared. We call it social security because it's very similar to Social Security. They are related in a way. They're both created by government. They were created at different times. Social Security was created in 1934, and Social Security was created in 1969. Unfortunately, for the last 50 some odd years, the government has not really stressed that section of the code, and I don't expect them to. I think that the place that they would be a lot of interest would be in the advisory fields and with your accountants, working with tax attorneys, people who have the knowledge of the tax code can help with these devices. They are very intricate, so they do require a little more experience. And so we're trying to educate advisors and carry them further along in the way that these devices can be used, and to create what we consider to be professional philanthropic advisors. In other words, advisors who have the skills regarding this part of the tax code. You can find advisors who have those talents on the website at socialsecurity.org, where you go to find an advisor, and that will lead you to the roster of professional philanthropic advisors who can do this kind of work. and find one in your area who can help you if you think you might be in a position where you're going to be selling something, where you want to avoid capital gains tax, where you don't want to pay as much income tax, where you want to avoid where you want to avoid estate tax. Your planning is going on. You need financial planning advice. Try and do whatever you're going to do. If you're going to sell something, you want to make provisions before you sell them, and you also want to be paying attention to the end of the year, December 31st, for any tax deductions that you want to create in the year of 2022. So you have a little bit of time left, and of course we're in the giving season right now. So if you have something that you're thinking about selling, this is the time to start to think about whether you want to use a charitable device to do the sale. The other night I was at an interesting meeting with about, I would say, 20 financial advisors, people who are very successful in the financial advice field. And I was asked to speak to them for a little while about how these devices can be used to help people in their financial planning. And I can tell from the responses how much people know and how much people are aware of. And there was only one out of the entire group that understood that you could use a charitable remainder trust to create an income stream from a charitable gift. And so I thought that was an interesting discovery, because not discovery, but confirmation of what we have been saying for a while. The advisors need to understand how to use these devices properly and when they can be used and how they're beneficial. That will translate to more of you knowing about it. You individually, you'll have a better opportunity to understand how these work and when they would be used, so that when we say 664, it's not a foreign number anymore. It'd be like a 401k. If you understand how a 401k, you don't have to really understand how a 401k works. You just know that it's usable and that people do use them successfully, and they're not to be anything to be, you're not creating something new. So you can learn more about everything that we're doing by going to the website at socialsocharity.org. But you also have another opportunity if you'll just ask your Siri, Alexa, to find you route664.org, route664.org. They'll take you to the radio station, and you can listen to the radio station and hear things that we have been promoting for a while, our interviews with very knowledgeable professional philanthropic advisors, our interviews with the philanthropists, people who enjoy what they're doing because the love of giving is important to them. And you'll also hear great music and some very specialized shows like Just Jazz or Classy Sunday. You have an opportunity to listen to other advisors who are helping all age groups. We've got Teen Matters, Teen Money Matters for young folks. And we also have Blaine Bartlett, who is a very sage, I would say he's a very sage entrepreneur and economist and seer. He's a very bright guy, and his interviews are brilliant. So you get to listen to a lot, and a lot of very uplifting and human kindness feelings. That's what we want to project. We want to project love. This is a time of year when giving is being highlighted, and it really should be all year round. We should be looking to be kind to others and find ways that we can give our love to ourselves and also to the community. So think about it. You have an opportunity now, as you have had for many years, but you have a way now to find out more about what we're talking about to see if it benefits you. One of the things that Glenn had said, Glenn Kaufhold, was if you're you don't have to be ultra wealthy to be a philanthropist, is basically what he was saying. It's not just rich people that are philanthropists. In my view, if you're a taxpayer, you're already a philanthropist. You're already a involuntary tax-paying philanthropist. And what we want you to do is become a voluntary philanthropist. And if you do that, you'll avoid some of the taxes. And that's important, especially today in these times when inflation is at the point that it's at, and where you're really, it's very important to try and accumulate and maintain your assets as much as possible. So just want to give you an idea of how this can work, because it is an important lesson. I have one of my listeners had a piece of real estate that they were looking to, they wanted to get out of it. They're going to get out of it between now and probably the end of next year. They've had a very successful year this year with income, and they wanted to create a tax deduction. So we found a way to move that parcel. We wanted to gift that parcel to a pooled income fund. The reason is that when he were to, if he were to sell that parcel of real estate right now, his capital gains tax would be 25% of the value, and the value of that is about $5 million. So if you're looking at $1,250,000 in tax, that's a lot. And so we showed him how to take that parcel, gift it to a pooled income fund, get the tax deduction for the gift, which at his age was about 70% of the gift, which was roughly $3.5 million. And he was able to sell, we were able to sell that parcel. And the agreement that we have between the pooled income fund and the donor is that for the rest of the donor's life, we will pay him the total return out of that pooled income fund, meaning that he would get all of the interest, the dividends, he would get all of the net realized short-term capital gains on an annual basis, and 50% of the net realized long-term capital gains. Now that's the power of a pooled income fund. And that's a very successful transaction. He added one other wrinkle to it, and that is that he wanted his children to be able to receive the income after he died, because he was concerned about their well-being. And so what he did was he made them the secondary beneficiaries, secondary income beneficiaries. So when will charity actually get that gift? When his last of his children passes away. But in the interim, he has this income, and there is this promise that that's going to come into the, it's not a promise, but it's guaranteed that it will come into the charitable world as a gift. Everything is related, of course, to age, and everything is related to the people that are involved. And I think that one of the drawbacks that a lot of nonprofits have with regard to using pooled income funds is that there's no current gift. But we had an understanding with the donor that he would give 2.5% of the total gift to nonprofit in the year that he made the gift, so that there was current cash being paid to the nonprofit organization, and that they could use that now, and they have also built something for the future. One of the greatest things that's ever said to me is, that sounds too good to be true. Then a lot of people say that, and a lot of people say, how come I never heard of that before? And I can only explain that through an excuse called complexity, that because these things are complex, that they are a little more out of the norm, that they're not easy to do on the face of them, but they're no different than a 401k. A 401k is not an easy thing to do. If you want to install a 401k of your employer, you know that it's not easy to do. You have to jump through hoops to do a lot of things to get that done. So, and it has to be monitored by somebody else. You need administration. These are no different. The pooled income funds or the charitable trusts or the charitable gift annuities are still regulated. They're required to report to IRS, and they're very well regulated. So that's the story. And this is Giving Week. Join us Tuesday night, November 29th. Go to asibchamber.org to join us for our presentation on using pooled income funds, charitable trusts, and charitable gift annuities to create endowments. Endowments for who? Endowments for you, the donor, that you can get income from, and endowments for the nonprofit world that you're going to leave behind. We want to get government out of the business. We want to change from a socio-political nightmare to a socioeconomic greatness. And that's, I think, the only way that you're going to get there is by changing the way we do things. So taxes are something you can avoid. The Honorable Learned Hand said that you're not duty bound to pay the most that the law extracts. You have the duty, right, and privilege to reduce your taxes as much as legally possible. And if you don't do that, that's on you. There are also, according to Learned Hand, there are two taxpayers in the country, the informed and the uninformed. Become an informed taxpayer and understand how you can do things to benefit yourself, your family, and the community. I'm Les Winston, and this is Route 664, the road to human kindness. Thank you for joining us here on the Community News Network, and also for joining us on Route664.org. And don't forget, ask Alexis or Siri; they'll get it for you right away. That's Route664.org. We'll see you again next week.